Hello there and welcome to Sling Paint Gaming. I'm Patrick. Today we're going to be going over some quick tips or guides in order to execute your ships a little bit faster on an actual physical table. If you're watching this video in the future, you may remember that we had a COVID issue and a lot of people were not allowed to put ships on the table or go to their store or even have people over their house to play. So we were in the digital age of X-Wing to where everyone's playing on their actual computer. So now that everyone is slowly possibly getting back to the tables, I know, certain things are pending, but we're creating this video to give you a guide. There are certain situations to where you're going to have to move a ship and there's a ship in the way, or there's something that's impeding you from putting down your template fully, or even ways that you can move your ship just a little bit faster because moving from a computer to an actual physical table is a little bit different. So you're going to take up a little bit more of your game time because we did a little research back about 2 years ago to where your movement phase and action phase take up about 50% of your actual game time. That's a lot of time to be putting down a template, moving a ship, executing it, or, performing any actions. So we're going to go over it with you, just some nice little things for you to consider, and I hope you can take anything from it. Here we go. Our first example is going to be with Jack Perkins. He moves first since he's initiative 4, and he's executing a 4K. So in this instance, we know that the 4 straight will fit, but it looks like it's going to go over Howl Runner's base, so we don't want to put it down and potentially shift Howl Runner. So one way to do it, of course, is to mark the ship. You want to mark it on the side that's not going to be under the template, and then you can, of course, execute the maneuver in full without bumping Howl or, cheat yourself of a little bit extra, because when you do put a template down on top of a base, it can lift the template off the table, and just this little space in here can remove a couple of millimeters of distance, and then all of a sudden your ship isn't going to make it, or it can cause it to bump. So you really want the template flush on the table in order to execute your maneuver fully and not cheat yourself of those few millimeters. The other better way is to actually, because it's not going to fit in there, you can put the straight template on the other side. So instead of in the guides over here, you can put it to the right of the guide and then execute over it without having to move any ships. It is effective. It's not, the best because, of course, there is a little bit of wiggle room there. It's not always flush because you are not using the full back of the base. So what we can do is show you an even better way to do it. You can put your ship down. Now with small base ships, your 1 straight is the size of your base. So that way you already know a 1 straight covers that distance. So now you put down a 5 straight, and then you can put down another 1 straight. So that way you know that the distance from here to here is the 4 straight. You know that the distance is fine, and then you can execute your maneuver fully. That way you don't have to mark anything, you don't have to move anything, and because it's flush with the side of the template, you know that you're actually moving straight. There's no, jostling or wiggling or anything like that. Our second example is going to be when you're executing either a straight and it doesn't make it past. So, if let's say you're trying to execute the 3 straight and you know that you're going to bump, you don't want to try and lift this up and put it underneath. It's just going to cause much of a hassle because you don't really need to train track it here. What you can do better off, since you know that the 3 straight's not going to fit, you can put it alongside. It's nice and flush since they're both straight edges, and you just run the ship along until it bumps. That way you know it's going along the same guide since it is straight. This works only for straight maneuvers. And the same thing when you, let's say, we're going to execute a 1 forward. Yes, it fits under there, but you don't really want to try and execute it this way either because it's not enough. You're not going to know where the guides are. It's just tough. And you don't want to use the 1 straight to go straight because you're going to, again, run out before you reach the shuttle and you could then run yourself off. So you'll always want to grab something a little bit longer, make sure it is going to the actual shuttle or clears the shuttle's front, and then execute it so that it bumps in straight. And then you remove the template, and then you know for a fact that you executed your maneuver properly and that you are bumping correctly. Okay, next up is going to be performing a Talon roll over another ship. So in certain cases, you're going to want to turn to the right. Maybe there's a rock right here or something like that, and he can't turn left, so you want him to go right. Of course, it's not going to fit. You could mark Howl Runner in any way that you want. I mean, you can try to put something there, but no matter what you do, that template's going to probably go over the marker. In this case, it didn't. It fit. That's pretty good. But in that case, what you can do, and we'll even leave Howl Runner out for the moment, you know that this fits, but you don't want to mark Howl Runner, so you can put a turn maneuver on the side of your ship and then execute the maneuver. So that way, as you can see, it lines up perfectly. And of course, Howl Runner is going to be there. This way, it's going to make me mark Howl Runner. This way, I don't have to. And even if you were all of a sudden to decide, hey, you know what, I like that, but I want to be backwards a little bit, you can still slide your turn maneuver this way, and it still fits exactly as if you did the Talon roll that way. So you can still do that Talon roll. You can adjust it appropriately, either forwards or backwards, and it's still the same maneuver. So that's another way that you don't have to mark a ship and speed things up just a smidge. Another instance to where you can just speed things up, make things easier for you in the long run. You know, good old Perkins did a nice 3-bank. He's going to go into that shuttle. The shuttle zero stopped. He completely forgot about it. And people are going to try and put that template down like this, especially now it's going over Howl Runner, and they're going to want to try and maneuver Perkins in there. Perkins may not fit between the two ships here. There may not be enough space, especially with it rotating going over the track. So immediately you should just mark Howl Runner, get her out of the way. It's going to be easier to put that template down. You can then train track Perkins, run him along the template here, come to the shuttle and stop, try to put Howl back. We know that Howl doesn't fit now. You can easily put Perkins back, and then also, if you want, you can put Howl Runner back to see which one he bumps into. Have your opponent hold down the ships and help you. I mean, you can even hold down Mauler Mithril here, move it along the track, and then you notice, oh, I bumped Mauler, or maybe I can squeeze through. Okay, looks like I squeezed just a little bit, and then I'm still, oh, nope, I'm over Mauler, I got to back up, and it's going to end right there. And then your opponent holds down Howl Runner, I hold Perkins, and then I can pull this out easily without interfering with the rest of it. It'll just make things easier instead of trying to guess. Just get that template down as flush as possible and train track it. All right. Another issue that I often see or people try to avoid doing rather quickly, again, it's just going to save you a little bit of time during the attack phase after everything is moved. You're shooting with Howl Runner or even Perkins. Unfortunately, Mauler Mithril's in the way. Mauler doesn't even have a shot this turn. So without even trying to measure, there's no reason why you shouldn't check. Just immediately mark your ship, and now you have an unobstructed way to measure. And it's like, oh, well, we know he has an arc, but what about range? Whether it's going through a debris cloud or an asteroid, you can quickly measure that without having to worry about Mauler, and then quickly put Mauler back. Because a lot of people immediately, they'll try this mark and they'll say, well, it looks like range 2, it looks like range 3, they'll go to the other side. And then worse yet is when you go to measure and then all of a sudden you're bumping or you're knocking things around trying to get that measurement. It's just easier. Get it out of the way, mark it any way you want, and then get the ship there. Just make sure that you put the ship back in the exact way that you had it. Okay, some other little tips that you can use for marking your ship. The game does come with ship markers like this. There's even the cardboard one. I have an acrylic one. So you can collect those. They're great. However, sometimes you just need to mark more than one ship. So in that case, just as a hint, because some of the templates do have these little notches in them to help fit you in the guides. Even if they don't, it doesn't matter. It will line up flush against the back of a ship, a side of a ship. But to let you guys know, the 2 straight is the exact same size as a large base ship. A 1 straight is the exact size of a small base ship. And this one's a little trickier because you kind of need to borrow from other ones. But basically a 1 straight over here, as well as the width of one of your, or any of your maneuver templates is about the size of a medium base ship. But that's okay, because you can always mark them in the middle with any of your templates and mark it like that. Just remember how you marked it, because you want to put your ship back exactly where you found it. I mean, if you mark your ship like this and then move it and then put it back like this, obviously that's going to cause some board issues. So you always want to remember where you're marking it, and you can do it on any side as well to mark in case you run out of ship markers. So you can use almost. Next up, sometimes you're going to run into issues to where you're going to execute your maneuver and you may have to place it on top of an asteroid. As you can see, I'm not purposefully trying to move it, but sometimes when putting it down, you're going to end up moving it anyways. So when you're working with your opponent, it's always best one of you can hold down the asteroid while the other one places the template in and moves the ship. That way things don't move. The other thing you can do is you can use what's called double-sided tape. It's pretty cheap. You can buy it at almost any hardware store or a hobby store, but it's tape like this. I know people might say, oh, I'm not putting tape on my stuff, but this is not really too, damaging to your stuff. You place it down, and then all of a sudden, as I'm putting down my template, it's not going to move. It easily comes up. It doesn't damage the mat, and then you can easily take it off the next time you play, and you don't have to leave it on there. So that's another little trick that'll help keep the game moving fast instead of actually the game just coming to a screeching halt because the asteroid wiggled a little bit and you don't know where it was, and the ship, when it was on it, and then all of a sudden you put it down and it slips off and moves the rock. And so it's just one of those frustrating things you don't want to deal with as a player. This way, you put it down, it's going to stay there, and it doesn't shift. Finally, our last little bit for this guide. Sometimes, Perkins again, bumping into Mauler Mithril, has executed a 3-bank. Didn't quite make it, is going to be running along those guides. Sometimes you will have enough, but as you can tell, the guide has fallen off. I don't really know where that midline is. I kind of want to make sure that I have a good line. So you can do what's called extending your train track. You can get Mauler Mithril in there, leave a 1 straight. It extends past Mauler Mithril, and that way you can keep the train track going until you bump into Mauler, and then you can again remove both templates. You can leave them both in there if you want, and then also bump Mauler Mithril as you're taking it out, as I do, but it's just a little bit more of a distance that you can cover, because sometimes, even with a large base ship like this, sometimes it's just a little helpful when you're doing one of those 3 banks and you're like, okay, I think that's going to fit, or you're looking for that bump. You're going to execute that maneuver, but it doesn't fit. You need a little bit more of a, template to give you just a little bit more of a guide. You can do a 3 straight underneath, mark the ship, and then run the shuttle along the guide for you, and then complete the maneuver, because there is a little bit of a bend in the back. It's not always going to be perfectly straight, and then you do what you can, and then once you execute Mauler's maneuver or whatever, you can then take the shuttle off, leave these here, put down the 4 straight, and then execute his maneuver. All right, thank you for watching. That's going to do it for this video. If you've tried these maneuvers before, if you have some of your own, or if you've never seen them before and you've tried it and it worked out for you, please let us know. We love hearing from you guys. And also, we like to know how can we better further our game as well as others, because we can always do another video on this as well. If you've done these maneuvers at a tournament and the judge says no way, or a player called a judge on you, even though the math adds up, that everything works out the way it is, there's nothing we can do if, they're not accepted, especially the hard turn one. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it is a successful way to keep the game moving a little bit faster. But with that, thank you so much for all your support. We're going to keep pumping out videos like this. We just did one on the latest epic ship unboxing. I know there's going to be more down the road, so thank you guys so much, and have a good one.